All right, we're live. Awesome. Okay, excited to be here, everybody. This is a continuation of our webinar series on planning 2025 as marketers. And so today we're joined by Kristine Wiss. Have I ever said your last name out loud? How do you say it?
Wiss.
Okay, I said it right. It's the marketing director at Wiss. We'll do intros after our little icebreaker because I wanted to launch this session, which is going to be all about your martech stack for 2025. And we're going to do a little bit of a buzzword decoder. So I found a bunch of buzzwords that I think we're all hearing when we get pitched marketing technology. And I want to briefly talk through some of them and be like, does this mean anything? Because, you know, tech has a tendency to try to create language, like technology companies. They do that a lot, right? Where they try to invent words and sound interesting or whatever. So I want to go through some of these lists, some of these terms, and just talk about whether we think this actually means anything. So the first, and this is actually an interesting one. So the first is personalization engine. We're talking a lot about personalization engines, at least I am in a lot of the technologies. Do we know what that is?
I'm not familiar with that one.
So that one, I think, means to use AI technologies to personalize your content at scale, which I think, as I talk to companies, is certainly something that's attractive, but people, I think, are quick to jump to that and sometimes lose sight a little bit of, let's personalize personally. Like if you have a lead that comes in, let's reach out to them personally and send them a very custom bespoke message that's tailored to them. So it is a thing. How effective it is remains to be seen, but don't forget the good old-fashioned shoe leather way of working your leads.
I totally agree. And I think it's how retargeting ads made us feel when they first were invented, where you're like, is my phone listening to me? You see something briefly, but don't even realize you see it. And then it appears somewhere else. And it just has a pretty big creep factor. I don't think anyone needs to be served what we're selling with that degree. Precision. Okay. So yes, it is a thing. Personalization engine. So the two companies who probably made it most famous were Netflix and Amazon. So they have probably the most sophisticated and big personalization engines that exist. And it's why Amazon always seems to know what you want to buy next, right? It's why Netflix always seems to know what you want to watch next. That's how they do it. So that is real, but it's like you said, Ross, a little bit maybe unnecessary. Okay, let's talk about this word. These words, growth hacking.
Everyone wants a quick fix, an easy way to grow. It's just, you want it to fit nicely into this package of okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, I will get here. And if I can cheat the system or go around the system or find a hack, then I will be able to do it faster. I think that typically doesn't work as well as we might want it to, because growth doesn't fit nicely and neatly into a box. When has that ever happened? So it's a thing for sure, but I'm skeptical about it a little bit.
Yeah, it feels like a get rich quick scheme, and that's we're in marketing. We know that doesn't, like you said, Lauren, that's not how the world works. Okay, here's an interesting one: zero-party data. Do we know what zero-party data is? No.
Zero-party data, and I could be wrong here and embarrass myself, means to own your own data, right? So it's like an email list or something like that, as opposed to interfacing with your customers or prospects through someone else's platform, like Facebook or Google.
Yeah. I think you said it right. So it's the idea of data that you're not automatically harvesting from anywhere, right? That you earn organically. So there's this huge risk as first-party cookies depreciate, or maybe they won't, who knows, right? Of trying to find a growth hack, right? Of trying to buy lists and all this kind of thing, right? To get at data in ways that people haven't given you permission to. And that's a no-no, obviously, even though we're told often to try. All right. Let's do like 2 more. So, okay, here's one. Marketing intelligence. There's like literally whole software systems right now that are called marketing intelligence systems. Is that real? And is it just a way of saying something different?
I mean, it sounds like they're marketing a lot of different potential capabilities that could provide you with intelligence around your entire marketing tech stack process, whatever it is, every omni-channel you're using. So it sounds very broad and sounds like a marketing ploy to me. If someone came to me and was selling a marketing intelligence tool, I'd have a lot of questions for them.
Good. I think you should. Yeah. I mean, I think it's another one of those, like, the word intelligence sounds great. But that is, I think, and we'll get into this a little bit when we get into martech and all that, but like we're being sold, like there's no simplification happening. Mm-hmm. And the tools out there that are claiming simplification are very complex. And that's part and parcel because our systems are so complex now, right? But yeah, integration needs to be a huge priority as we think about expanding our tech stacks. Okay, thanks, guys. So I guess the big takeaway from this is like, from this part is like, question what you hear. Mm-hmm. And if something sounds like groovy and new, like question that, because it doesn't, just because it sounds fancy and technical doesn't mean it's real and doesn't mean it will really provide value to your organization. Okay. We're going to bring our skeptical hats all day today as we talk about marketing technology planning for 2025. But let's do some intros. So I'm Joy Yule. I am an executive consultant at Winsome Marketing. And Kristine, you want to just give us an overview of who you are and what Wiss is?
Sure. I'm Kristine Wiss. I'm the marketing director at Wiss. Wiss is an accounting, advisory, and wealth firm in Northern New Jersey. So I'm happy to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
You're one of our favorite people. Kristine came with us to Comic-Con, so she's embedded in the ecosystem. All right. Speaking of Comic-Con, Lauren was also there.
Comic-Con was so much fun. So, hey everyone, Lauren Keller here. I am the head of content over at Winsome. So I lead our amazing content team, and I'm super excited to be on this call because I think one of the big takeaways that not only from a marketing tech stack perspective of what we need, but also how we talk about our marketing tech stack and how we sell it. I'm so interested in brand positioning and messaging in general. So I think you'll hear a lot of me questioning, okay, what does that mean? Why does it matter? Who is it for? So I think there's a lot of really lovely overlaps there. So I'm excited about that.
Love that. All right, Ross, you want to intro quick?
Yeah, my name's Ross Henderson. I'm a senior executive consultant at Winsome Marketing. I was not cool enough to go to Comic-Con, maybe next year. But what I do is I work with a lot of our consulting clients, helping them think through their content strategy and more broadly, their digital and marketing strategies, right? So I do some fractional marketing leadership stuff. And part of that process is helping people think through what their tech stacks should look like and how they plan to use new technologies in the future. So excited for this conversation today.
Absolutely. I think I'm the least technical person on this call, so I will facilitate and listen. So the first question that we can't not ask, because if there's a technology out there that is not trying to sell based on its claim to implement artificial intelligence, then I don't know about it. Every single technology that I interact with is talking about AI capabilities. So let's talk about that, because we're being told to upgrade HubSpot into AI. We're being told to upgrade our CRMs into AI and Adobe and all of the things that are in our tech stack, right? There's like this AI power up call, right? So I guess the question is, how much are we as professional marketers and people who are working directly with marketing leaders and teams and departments thinking about the use of artificial intelligence in our tech stack? What is our thought process? You want to start, Kristine?
Sure. So the marketing tech stack is a complex thing to think about. There's a lot of different components, and adding AI into the picture has made it even more complicated. And confusing to really determine what you really need to execute on a day-to-day basis. So one thing that I think about is how does our tech stack fit into the business goals? What is the business trying to achieve? And really starting there to determine what tools I need to start evaluating and looking into. I'm bombarded by tech salespeople every day trying to sell me something. So I really have to pause and think about, is this something that the business is going to help improve the business, help the business grow? Is this going to help my team be more efficient? What's the effect, the long-term effect going to be? Not in the short term, this cool AI tool came out, I want to jump on the bandwagon. It's really taking time to think through, how is this going to improve the business, grow the business, and really strengthen our team and add value. If it's not going to do any of those things, put it on the table, reconsider it another time.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. And you need to have a strategic approach here. You can't just look at this as, it's tempting to look at this as, shiny object syndrome. Like, oh, this has an AI feature, I got to use it. It's going to make my team much more effective and much more productive. And you might see some marginal gains from, tools that you already use rolling out AI features. But for the large part, I think, that strategic approach is the most important part. You need to think about how it fits into your overall business goals. You need to think about how these processes tie together. And you can't think that, oh, you just do AI and you have an AI strategy because the tools that you already use now have some AI features in them, right? Every software tool has some AI features in them. They've had AI features in them for a long time. This isn't anything dramatically new in the past year or two. It's just become much more mainstream, and people have a much stronger awareness of it now. So there's definitely, gains to be had, but you need to take that strategic approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's not a single day that has gone by besides Comic-Con that we have not talked about AI to some degree in, just our marketing processes in general. So for me, it's just like peeling back all of the layers and like, okay, what is our process as a business? How do we get from point A to point B? And actually laying all of that out, we identify, okay, we have 3 inefficiencies. Inefficiency 1 is more important than 2 and 3. We prioritize it. And then we say, okay, can AI help in this instance? The answer is probably yes, to some degree, but you have to figure out which AI tool it is. Or, you probably just don't need 5 different AI tools all tackling one tiny little minute part of your process. So it's like really figuring out the ones that are going to have, as we've said here, the biggest impact. And just peeling back what your process actually is, as opposed to band-aiding it with AI.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I often tell people who are, when we're in there looking at their tech stack and they're like, should we use AI for this? Should we use AI for that? And I'm like, I think statistically it's like, 30% of the marketing technology we pay for, we don't even use anyway. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'd be like, you're not even using the non-AI parts of things. We're much less like, and then I think secondly, thinking about like AI's whole goal, right, is efficiency. The output is only equal to in quality to the input. And so people underestimate. They think, okay, AI is going to make me faster. So first of all, is it going to make a broken system faster? Because that's just going to compound your problems. And then I think secondly, like, don't underestimate how many months and even possibly years it's going to take to get to a point of mastery over some of these tools where the input and the training and the algorithmic calibration has been so well achieved that it does actually free you up, right? Like it's going to take a while to get to that point. So this like promise of like, I'm going to instantly save you a day of work a week. Like, I think we should all know that's nonsense. I hope we all know that's nonsense. We need to have some really strong skepticism when we're in conversations with people who are making things sound way too good to be true.
Yeah, there's a huge cost involved, right? It's not just dollars, it's human resource cost. And what's it going to take to actually implement the tool and make it effective, right? And that takes time, that takes resources, in addition to money. So definitely something else to consider if you're looking to add tools or change tools.
Yeah, partnering with the right people who know how to do that, who will ask you the questions that maybe you don't know how to ask. So if I'm saying like you have to buy a tool that perhaps is only a small part of maybe what you know how to do for your skill set. Like I would want a partner who would say like, you didn't ask me this question. You should have asked me this question. And because like, that's going to be important. So like, let me know what I don't know. And maybe audit your process with you. Like someone who's just going to help you make the most of it and not just sell it and then say goodbye.
Yeah, and I think, you guys talked about the input process, but the output side of that equation is also important to think about as well. Because I think a lot of people look at AI technologies, particularly generative AI, which is, I think, the lens that most people are talking about this through, as something that's going to make them more productive and produce more volume of marketing content or sales materials. You still have to have a plan for what you're going to do with all of that content. And it can be something as simple as, okay, we used to do 4 blog posts a month, now we do 40. Like, how are you getting those blog posts on your website? How are you indexing them? How are you editing them and doing quality control? That, again, is a lot of, human capital that needs to go into that process. And if your processes already aren't great in the first place, overwhelming them with volume from AI tools is just going to make things worse. So I think it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, right? Which is you need to have the good, right processes in place before you can start thinking about how you want to implement these tools and scale them.
Yep. And even just by way of illustration, so like our content AI build that we're doing with clients right now, it requires 20 to 30 months of like consultant time. And then it requires about 10 hours a week. So about 40 hours a month of internal team time at the client. So like, unless you have somebody, and if you want to do that in-house, then that's almost a full-time job. And it takes about 6 months. So just thinking through, like you said, Kristine, like what the kind of related costs are in terms of human resources. AI doesn't just build itself. And that's, I think, a big misunderstanding, especially when we're being sold tools. Okay. So be deliberate with tech choices, focusing on your real business needs, right? We say that's like the big takeaway. So we talked a little bit about this, but let's just really quickly think about the actual implementation of AI technologies. So so I just mentioned briefly the content AI build, right? So if we think about maybe AI implementation in your tech stack, let's say audience segmentation stuff for emails, that would be a pretty common one, right? You set up all the fields, but what would be the process of actually implementing some kind of psycholinguistic parameters via an AI tool into your CRM so that you can better segment and send segmented content? Because that's something a lot of AI salespeople will talk about, right? You're going to bolt in an AI tool to your CRM, and then all of a sudden, you're going to be able to send personalized emails to everybody in your email list. That's what they promised, right? But what does it actually take to make that happen? Let's unpack that for a second. And we can be hypothetical, but hypothetically, what would it take?
So, I mean, once the whole implementation process and the process leading up to implementation takes a lot of work to begin with. At Wiss, I have my technology team. I'm really fortunate to have them involved in that process and evaluating the tool initially. And having them help with the implementation or identify if we need to hire someone from the outside to help with the implementation and make sure our team is successful in setting that up. But I mean, the whole setup process could be potentially complex. There's a learning curve in all of this. So really understanding how to set it up and whether or not I can set it up or need help setting it up are things that I'm figuring out every single day. Because if I can't do it effectively, if we can't get it set up correctly from the beginning, the actually execution piece will probably fail or not be as successful as we need it to be. So that setup piece is really important. Making sure that we have the proper training in place, and and ongoing training in place for any changes that take to the technology is really important as well. So I've noticed some of these tools have like self-training, which I find a little bit challenging. I prefer to work with a tech company that has that like customer success experience, so I can bounce those questions off of them if I need some kind of support. So yeah, that all those steps take a lot of time, a lot of thought consideration, because I want to make sure I'm going to be successful in using this tool.
So with personalization, here's my thing. You actually have to know who you're talking to, like for real, for personalization. And like, I'm not trying to say that to be facetious, but it's true. Like, I think a lot of companies want to personalize everything, but they actually don't have a good sense of what is the difference between customer A and customer B, besides the fact that I have named them A and B. And we need to go even deeper than, okay, demographics. We have to go into psychographics. What do these people care about? What are their value drivers, their pain points? What gets them up in the morning? How will your product or your service actually impact their day-to-day? You should be able to know all of these things and so much more before you can even benefit from personalization. Because if you're essentially sending the same message to both people, I mean, that are both, groups in this case, you're not going to really benefit from the tool. So I just feel like I had to call that out.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point. Like, is your data where it needs to be to implement these tools, right? And that's conversations that we have at Wiss in part of our evaluation, because if that's not right, then, again, these tools aren't going to be as effective as we need them to be. So let's pause and get that data piece right before we actually roll out, these tools.
Yeah, I think it was Lauren, you said earlier, it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? So if your data isn't right and you don't have things codified correctly in your system, then you're not going to get the results you want from implementing this tool. And if you can't even express how you would segment your customers based on what you know about them, there's no chance that an AI model that's coming into that process cold is going to be able to do that unless you figure it out and tell it what that process looks like. And even once you've done that, I think one thing that we haven't touched on is you should have a pretty rigorous period of testing for this, right? You should set this up in a test environment to see how it would interact with your customer, to check that the model is working correctly, because you're putting a lot of faith in these models, right? This is your communications with your prospects, with your clients, with people, on your email list, whatever it is. You don't want to put that fully in the power of a relatively untested or new technology. You want to feel confident about it before you make that switch across.
Mm-hmm. Huge. And I think to expand on that even further, Kristine had said, the ongoing updates of these technologies. So, I mean, I think like no duh risk of nascent technology is that it changes, right? Bug fixes and patches and iterations. And I was literally watching I'm trying to learn how to use APIs like from code, okay. But anyway, so I was watching YouTube videos on it, and had it like side by side, the YouTube video and the interface that I was using, the exact same thing. And she's taking me in the video, like step by step through something. And like one button that she hit wasn't on my screen, meaning they had updated the UI since they filmed that video. And it was only 4 months old. And I was like, and I wanted to comment on the video, but then I was like, don't be that person, right? So I'll like email their support. But I was like, yikes, right? So you go through all this testing, all this implementation, all this whatever, and then it changes, right? So, I mean, you almost have to have somebody whose full-time job then becomes like laser focus on keeping everything up and then updating all of your training materials and all of that. Because if somebody's not in the system every day, if they're in the system so let's say I logged into that system once and then I logged in 4 months later, how I learned how to use it just changed, right? Like what I'm conditioned to look for in the UI changed. So yeah, I think that's also a huge risk. So we have all this kind of, not only is the technology untested in our system, it's untested full stop. And so we should be cautious, right? About, like you said, throwing and then just trusting it to work like they're claiming it will.
I think about that with EV companies too. Like when you look at buying an electric car and you're like, wait, what system are they using? Is that system patented or tested, or how much do I believe in this company? Is it going to go under? And then if it does, what happens to all my data? Can I drive this car? So I think we can also translate that to, here in marketing tech stack of like, if it's a really new company, how secure is that data? Is the company in solid or strong footing? What happens if that tool changes or gets acquired? Like, what happens to all my stuff, my personal data? I think that's critical.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the tech stack evaluation. So as we're in, for most of us, this is Q4, and depending on your fiscal year, but for most of us ending out the year, we start thinking about our 2025 plans, and that's kind of what this whole series is about. So as we are looking across our current tech stacks or our clients' tech stacks, let's talk about the biggest areas of opportunity that we think are not working, right? So the things that we would say like, hey, I've identified like largely across the board, this is inefficient, this is underutilized, this is an area for growth that we've honed in on. And Kristine, you don't have to sell yourself out since you're speaking on your own behalf, but we can talk about it in an anonymous way about clients.
Yeah, why don't you guys start there? And
yeah, we can start.
I mean, I'd like to hear what other companies are experiencing, because we usually have the same pain points, especially in accounting. A lot of my peers often experience the same things. So yeah, what are you guys hearing from your clients?
Ross works with a lot of accounting firms, so maybe Ross should go first.
Yeah, I mean, specific to accounting, and I guess also more broadly, is the communication between marketing and sales, right? So if I'm doing all this work on the marketing side to bring leads into the pipeline, how are those handed off to sales? What kind of information does the sales team have? And then equally, what type of information does the sales team communicate back to the marketing team? And it's, a little bit unique in accounting firms because the way that marketing sales model works is, pretty different to other companies where it actually goes to more of a sales team, right? In an accounting firm, it might go to a partner, it might go to a business development person. It really depends on the firm. To extrapolate that more broadly, I think, a big opportunity for a lot of people is in having their systems talk more to each other and be more integrated. And I'd say that's true both between systems, right? So can you set up like a bunch of zaps between different systems to automate your processes? Like I've found that's been super effective when I've gone in and done that for clients. But more broadly, like, can you get deeper in a certain system? So like our project management tool, ClickUp, this year, and I credit Lauren with a lot of this, since she's come in, we've started to use it much more effectively than we did in the past. So don't assume that just because you're using a tool already, that you're using it to its full effect and its full capacity. Dedicate a little bit of time to going deeper and understanding how potentially you could use that tool better. Because I think it's been a big, productivity driver for us at Winsome here this year.
Define Zaps real quick in case somebody's not familiar.
Okay, so Zaps, company called Zapier, they, I believe, use APIs. I'm not sure on the tech side of it, but they say that if a certain event happens in one system, like say, I get an email from a client, I can set up a Zap, connect it to my Gmail account, and then connect it to ClickUp, and I can use that Zap to say, okay, when I get an email from this client, set up a task in my ClickUp dashboard to take action on this. And you can join up pretty much any major software product to another major software product. And yeah, really effective for, tying together like CRM systems, email marketing tools. There's all kinds of things you can do with it, and it's pretty powerful.
Thanks.
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I've automated before is follow-ups for clients. So, we're in client management. Clients are busy. They're just as busy as we are. So sometimes they might forget to respond to us. But it's also challenging because, I don't want to sit there and just like try to remember, wait, when did I send that last email? Did I follow up with this person? Like that takes way too much time. So if it just automatically sends follow-ups if no one has responded to me, which all of my clients are delightful. Everyone responds, right? But that's really helpful. I would say that definitely project management and document management are the two areas that are wildly inefficient right now. especially document management. Like, please. Coordinating between, the actual platform that you're using, naming conventions, sharing permissions, all of that stuff. Most clients, I think even including us internally, I have a big initiative that I want to do to clean that up here at Winsome. So it'll be very fun. Can benefit from taking a look at that in 2025.
Yeah, you're so right. Because I sat down. So in a content AI build, the whole first month is tech evaluation. And I know that feels like boring, but like you got to do it. And one of the big parts of that is document management evaluation. Like, is somebody using Word docs and Google Docs? Are we using multiple systems? Are they saving in the cloud? Are they saving locally? What's the naming convention? All of that. So yeah, there's absolutely like, you cannot expect to make content at scale if you don't have document management under control. It's just not going to work. I totally agree with that. So based on that, Kristine, can you hypothesize any areas that you would say like, yeah, these are opportunities for growth broadly?
Yes. I mean, I find a lot of people struggle with process and change. And so process, always requires change. I love process. I love following a system, but a lot of people's brains don't work that way. So I think there is opportunity to use technology to make that easier for people who struggle in thinking and operating that way. It's really hard to get people to do the same thing. And the bigger the business grows, the harder it becomes. So I definitely see opportunity for us there. We are a Microsoft shop, so a lot of what our tech team has been doing has been building a lot of those systems and processes and ways to share within Microsoft Teams, which has been really helpful and helped streamline a lot of, at least get people on the same page and documents in one place and things like that. So we're working on it at Wiss, but there's always work to be done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think that, another area is just to evaluate what you have. So the subscription economy has made us a little bit blind to our tech spend because we're like, it's $20 a month. Oh, it's $20 a month. Oh, it's $100 a month. Right. So we start to just build, I think, this oversized tech stack, and there will be like one person who uses that technology, right? As opposed to widespread adoption and all that. So I think, if it's kind of like sitting down at the end of the year and being like, all right, if this doesn't fit me anymore, I'm going to give it to Goodwill. Like, I'm not going to leave it in my closet again this year. It's kind of just giving yourself that permission to say like a little bit of clean out as we start the year fresh. And then, thinking about, honestly, most of the time you have food to eat at home. Most of the time, what you need is already there. You just need to use it better. And like, you've invested in Microsoft. Microsoft is making, thoughts and prayers, but it is what it is, right? But Microsoft is cutting edge, right? They are, from a data privacy perspective, from a security perspective, from an integration perspective. Like, it is an enterprise level resource, meaning it's not, you probably don't need anything else, right? Other than what you already have in Microsoft with Copilot or whatever. So I think it's a matter of doing that evaluation and then getting a little bit disciplined, kind of like Lauren said, about just using what you have, getting rid of what you don't use, and not getting too attracted to things that feel novel or shiny, knowing that what you can use is already going to maximize your productivity. The other thing we were talking about, and I can't remember if we talked about it this group or if we talked about it otherwise, but like, we also talked about how, one of the things that we're sold on all the time is that AI and AI powered systems are going to make us more efficient. I want us to talk and like spend a minute talking about whether or not that is whether or not getting faster is the right thing to do for every kind of task. Does that make sense? Efficiency, right? Like, we're like bowing at the altar of efficiency. We thought about that? Loyalty? Like, is efficiency the right decision for every, I mean, we talked about this, right? Like we don't microwave a chicken. Like there are things that take more time and should take more time in order to get textural and rich and meaningful and dimensional.
I think this goes back to the strategy piece that we talked about at the start of the conversation, right? You have to be intentional about how you're going to use AI, which tasks you're going to use it for. You're not just going to use it for everything, right? You're not going to microwave a chicken. So yeah, just thinking through like, you know, what a day in the life or a week in the life looks like of someone on your marketing team. You know, there are going to be tasks there that can be made more efficient and should be made more efficient by use of AI. But in doing that, what you do is you free up time for them to spend more time on other tasks, which would benefit from them taking, you know, spending more time there or taking a more deliberate approach. So I think it cuts both ways, and you just have to take the right approach to figuring out what that should look like within your company.
Yeah, because I think that blanket statement of, you know, we hear this all the time in tech and AI with the conversation of efficiency is like, oh, your team will be freed up to spend more time on other things. And that's just all they say. Then I feel like the sales pitch stops there. But I was thinking about like, what is that other thing? And if we can assign value to that, I think that's going to be really important. So I don't want to just spend extra time, I don't know, scrolling on TikTok or scrolling on, you know, LinkedIn. That's not productive. And I feel like, you know, leadership teams would not see obviously the value in that. So we can say like, no, we need to have more human hours here because we are building this really new strategic approach in the market, or our go-to-market strategy has to be really dialed in. And so to do that, we have to do more voice of customer interviews, or we have to have more conversations with sales, whatever. Like that takes more time and that has to have a human touch where we could automate something else, a follow-up or an email or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I think you're not going to gain efficiencies right away in any of these changes too. So it's like defining what efficiency means to you. You know, it could be a long game, and you may not gain that efficiency right away. So another thing, I guess, to weigh when you're changing these processes.
Yeah. And I think like, you know, as somebody who like leads marketers, right, in my agency, like I want people to want to do deep work. And there's a huge risk, I think, of just scattering AI everywhere and then just feeling like our jobs are just a series of easy buttons, right? And it's like we just sit there and we push all the buttons and then we want it to go, right? Like I want people to like hunger for self-expression and, you know, doing interesting things and writing powerful words and like, and so I think that's our job, right? As marketing leaders who are making decisions about technology is exactly that, Lauren and Kristine. Actually, all three of you said it, like freed for what? Okay, we're freeing up time for what? And that's what we need to spend, as much as we spend time thinking about the technology and the architecture of our tech stack and the interoperability and all those things, we need to be thinking about what are our people really good at? Like what is inherently beautiful and meaningful, and what are they passionate about, and how can we start to create space, or how can this technology start to create space for them to be that and do those things? I think otherwise you're going to see a swath of people leaving the marketing because it is so boring to just work on technology all day. Like marketers are not wired that way. We are not technologists. We are creative professionals. And so I think if you take all your marketers and you say, you're not going to be replaced by AI, you're going to be replaced by somebody doing AI. So you need to become somebody doing AI. And that's going to be 40 hours a week of your life. You're going to have people like, uncle. No. Don't you think?
I mean, that's the question that you brought up about scale, of like, where should you scale up? And so, you know, just because you have AI does not mean that you should then do triple of every single thing. Because that is the way of like a marketer's job turning into this kind of AI puppet master of pulling the strings and figuring out which lever to pull at a certain time. I think there has to be room for creativity, but creativity is hard to quantify. So I think for a lot of marketing teams that could be scrutinized.
You mean like by leadership who are looking for ROI?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's very natural that leadership teams want to see results, and ROI is very important. So if I'm seeing, hey, I have a huge chunk of my people's time that are spent maybe on passionate creative pursuits, that's not making me money. So I could see that easily getting cut. So I think it's figuring out how to frame that as, no, we're not just doing this for creative pursuits. It's actually playing the long-term strategy game because we're heading here. So it's always keeping that vision and long-term goal in mind so that you can balance that beautiful long-term vision with your quick wins and ROI.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit less about creativity and a little bit more about figuring out like what your team's superpower is. What are they really, really great at? And what do you want them to spend the most time on? And if it's something that they're really, really great at, the chances are that's something that fulfills them as well. So if you can identify what that is, I think that is, potentially the sell to senior leadership more than, we want to allow our people more time to be creative and to think deeply about the business. Like if you're a sales professional and AI gives you an extra 5 hours a week to spend having lunch with your customers or, taking them out for a drink or going to play golf with them, like that's going to help the company, right? So I think, that's what I would map it back to is, okay, what are we truly great at? What can we not outsource to technology or to an external partner? And how can we free our people and elevate them to spend more time on that?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I like to build my team and play on their strengths. So if someone's not as strong in a place where AI can actually help, then let's use the technology. But if they're going to be engaged in doing something that they're really passionate about, then let's have them continue to do that because we work as a team and all of our strengths make our team successful. So it's, like you said, Ross, it's just figuring out where to play on those strengths and where to supplement with the technology.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's also how we assuage, how do you say that word out loud? How we soothe, right? The fear of like AI is going to take my job, right? It's us as leaders stepping in and saying like, here's the roadmap for us in our use of AI. And then my reasonable expectation of what your role will become perhaps over the next few years. One thing I thought would be important to bring up today as we think about, other marketers in our networks and all that is just kind of conveying how we are upskilling in terms of tech. None of us learned this in school. And I don't really think anyone is learning this in school. And so what are any of the resources, outlets, disciplines, practices we, the four of us, are using to learn about the things that we now have to know, which are kind of unrelated to anything we've ever had to know before?
Well, I'll say that your team has been really instrumental in helping my team learn and grow. So the courses that you offer have been, have helped us grow and helped me figure out like how you can help us be better, right? Because I don't know everything. I'm not an expert at everything. Marketing is huge. There's so many things to know. So I have to really evaluate again, what's my goal? Where do we need to grow now? And where do we need to grow long term? So I find that having the live courses that you guys do has helped teach me and teach my team rather than I've also had them take like an online digital course where it's self-guided, and I don't think that was as effective. So finding a course that's live where people can ask questions directly, I've seen value in that and actually help us improve some of our content processes. I'm also following different thought leaders on social media and LinkedIn and trying to stay there to just learn from other experts in the space, because it's hard to keep up and really know what direction to go in.
Yeah, I think to build on that, it's difficult to determine the signal from the noise, because this is like the topic du jour, right? In the way that, 5 years ago, Joy, maybe like how to make $10,000 a month as a freelancer was like all anyone could talk about online. I guess she's so disgusted by that she disappeared. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult to determine, what is the most relevant. Oh, you're back.
Speaking of technology. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, so it's difficult to determine the signal from the noise, right? And to figure out what is actually valuable, relevant information and what is just bluster or someone trying to sell you something. I think what I found most useful, and like you, Kristine, I do a lot of reading online, where it's LinkedIn, X, listening to podcasts, reading articles, whatever. But actually, getting your hands dirty, rolling up your sleeves and getting into these tools and figuring out how you might use them, right? And I think what's interesting is that for the most part, it's really been quite a personal journey for a lot of people of, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to figure out which of these tools I like the most, which ones don't really work for the way that I currently structure my workflows and my processes. And it's different to other kind of software applications in the sense that those are normally determined by someone at a higher level, right? It's like you said, we're a Microsoft shop. We're going to use Microsoft products. Whereas I feel like some people are on ChatGPT, some people use Perplexity, some people like Anthropic, Cloud, like whatever. There's so many of these different models out there. I think you have to go out there, experiment with them, keep an open mind, and then discuss them and have conversations like this about what works and what doesn't work and how you need to approach it.
Yeah, and I found using the different tools, sometimes we need to use more than one. So fortunately, I have the flexibility to do that here, but and pin down to one tool, but it is like trial and error, testing it out, seeing what works best in certain situations, because it's not one size fits all, is what I've found. And yeah, luckily I have a tech team here to support me, but I've learned they think about things as a tech team differently than I do as a marketer. So when I'm evaluating some of these tools and actually doing the initial research to figure out what tools we want to evaluate, I'm thinking about things different than they are. So we've kind of teamed up now to make those decisions and research and evaluate tools together. But I've learned now to ask the questions that they would ask around data security and what kind of, tech support do they have? I'm not thinking about these things initially. I'm thinking more about how is this going to help my team be more efficient at their job. So they've been a huge help in doing some of these evaluations and testing out the tools. It gives different perspective.
Yeah, I'm such a fan of tool testing. I think that's the best way to figure out what works and what doesn't. I've run a couple cohorts of generative AI testing with content writers. So first at my last agency over at SEMrush, and then here at Winsome. And those tests are both very different because I had different sets of content writers and we had different goals. So one goal was a lot of short form content, a lot of ads, that kind of thing. And then over here, we had to do a lot of, long form blogs, pillars, ebooks, white papers, that kind of thing. That takes a different skill set. So it has a lot of different inputs, different tools are better suited for that. And then you set up your testing environment of, okay, who's my team? What tools are we testing? What are the 3 to 5 parameters we're testing it on? Setting up all of those different constraints and then evaluating it. And as Ross said, and Kristine, you said too, just talk through it with the team. What are the results? What are people experiencing? What are problems? What are different solutions? So I think that's definitely the best way to know if something's going to work. I also just really enjoy getting product emails from people, like yay product teams for our tech, because it's very helpful. A lot of them will go through different features that maybe you didn't think about or updates that you need to be mindful of. So I think that's super important as well, and a good way to stay up to date.
I think, for me, I'm subscribed to 3 or 4 key emails.
Mhm.
And I also think for me, like I've decided to like dedicate my knowledge acquisition to my lane. Like I'm staying in my lane. I'm not learning about all the related things. Like for me, SEO, content production, like that's what I want to know. So the reality is I learn a lot about the whole world and ecosystem of AI, but it's through something that I already have a very well-established knowledge base in. So it's not like I'm having to learn a discipline or the sophisticated components of that discipline and AI. Like I'm just learning about the kind of innovations in AI specifically, or in the technology specifically. So yeah, subscription to newsletters, especially like daily ones, where people, to your point, Ross, like that I think I trust for the most part, are expert voices, like cut through the clutter. Like here's the 6 things you need to know today about what happened, right? Like those kind of things I think are super helpful. Those curated kind of like snack size resources. And yeah, I follow a lot of influencers online too. So people in the space who will talk about, you know, what's going on right now. Because that's the other thing too, like the timeliness of certain elements of this. So like to your point, Kristine, like for more evergreen knowledge, core skill development, yeah, courses are a good fit for something like that. But for like rapid change, product development, we need on the ground intel. So I think it varies. All right. Well, thanks for joining today, guys. I think we packed a lot into this little hour. Any final thoughts about ways that you're thinking about your tech stack for next year, things that are happening to review, or anything that came to mind that we didn't cover?
I would just say take time and be thorough in your evaluation process. Don't get sucked into the shiny object. And yeah, really determine if it fits into your goals for next year or not. Because there's always time to add more or change. But yeah, this is great. I learned from you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. All right. Everybody have a good rest of your day. We'll talk soon.